Fact or fiction? It's Bloomberg versus Big Tech. The Facebook vulnerability affects 30 million, not 50 million, and Google Plus says goodbye. All that coming up now on ThreatWire. Greetings, I am Shannon Morrison. This is ThreatWire for October 16, 2018, your summary of the threats to our security, privacy, and internet freedom. Our Patreon is over at patreon.com/ThreatWire, and that is always the best way to support the show and will help us reach our next goal. So if you want access to exclusives, make sure to check out the Patreon link in the show notes below. And special thanks to our newest Patreon supporters, Gerardo, Mike, Anthony, Yari, Opacity, and Clark. And now onto the news. First up, it's all about Facebook. So we have some good news and some bad news with the Facebook hack reported on earlier this month. Last month, Facebook announced that 50 million users had their data breached during a security vulnerability that lasted about a year and was discovered last month. The breach impacted user access tokens due to a bug in the way the View Ads feature was implemented. Last week on Friday, Facebook posted an update regarding this hack, saying that it actually only affected 30 million people instead of 50, yay, but that it also gave attackers access to a slew of private data. According to the update, attackers already controlled a series of accounts in which they used techniques to pivot from one account to another, from one friend to a friend of that friend, and so on and so forth. This started with 400,000 people. These 400,000 people had their posts, friends list, groups, and names of recent Messenger conversations left vulnerable. The attackers then used a portion of that user base to steal the access tokens of another 30 million people. 15 million in particular had their name and contact details such as phone number and email address leaked. Another 14 million had their name and contact details along with username, gender, birth date, language, relationship status, location, religion, hometown, device type, education, work, 10 last places checked in or tagged in, websites, people or pages that they follow, and 15 most recent searches, all leaked to the attackers. Now, attackers did not access the information for 1 million of those 30 million people. Facebook ended this update with information on how to check whether or not you were affected. Affected users would see an update in the Help Center and would also receive a message within the next coming days detailing the hack. Facebook also clarified that they are working with the FBI in an investigation alongside the FTC and the Irish Data Protection Commission. It's still unclear who directed the attack or why. Facebook has not identified any known uses of the stolen information or tokens as of yet, but it's logical to assume that any and all data leaked would eventually find itself in the hands of a third party or be made publicly available. They also stated that the hack did not affect third-party apps or their other operations such as Messenger, Oculus, Instagram, etc. Any user who finds themselves to be a part of this breach should remain skeptical about any emails or contacts purported to be from Facebook or other parties, as the leak of these personal details could lead to social engineering attacks, phishing, or scams, so be careful. On October 4th, Bloomberg Businessweek posted a headline story detailing how teeny tiny computer chips were installed by Chinese manufacturers on leading Supermicro server motherboards to later be sold to 30 large corporations in the US like Amazon, Apple, and others. According to the report, both Apple and Amazon found these chips way back in 2015, reported it to the FBI, and an investigation is ongoing. The chips were disguised as other components on the motherboards, sometimes even installed inside the fiberglass of the motherboard and connected to the management processor to give them access to both system memory and networking on the devices they were installed in. These chips could be remotely controlled or accessed and could modify the operating systems, even so much as to remove password validation from a machine. These chips allegedly came from the People's Liberation Army of China, and since China manufactures 75% of mobile phones and 90% of PCs, it would be possible, right? Well, Supermicro is a California-based company that manufactures in Taiwan and China. And while Bloomberg's report states that spies purported to be employees of the company or government representatives at their factories got employees at 4 different factories to change the specs and include the chips, Supermicro, on the other hand, vehemently denied these claims. UK's National Cybersecurity Center and the US Department of Homeland Security both denied the claims and state that they have no reason to doubt Apple or Amazon, as both of those denied it as well. Now, Bloomberg also claims that Apple scrapped 7,000 Supermicro servers and ended their relationship with Supermicro in 2016. Amazon sold off a Chinese data center. Strangely, or not so much, all three of these companies named denied the story, saying that none of them have ever worked with the FBI on anything having to do with Supermicro, that they never knew about a compromise, or knew about any hardware modifications. Apple did state that malware was found on a Supermicro server of theirs back in 2016, but that was a different problem. Supermicro also stated that they don't even design networking chips or manufacture them, and China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs even replied, and while not stating specifically that they did not have any involvement, they did say that, quote, supply chain safety in cyberspace is an issue of common concern, and that they, quote, hope parties make less gratuitous accusations. Now, while the companies deny it, Bloomberg states that 6 current or former senior national security officials all detailed the investigation and discovery of these chips, while 17 total anonymous sources confirmed the story. Now, due to the two sides of this story, many cybersecurity experts are leaning into the conversation, many of which are skeptical of Bloomberg's story. Omar Schwartz, for example, a security researcher who has done a proof of concept supply chain hack, said that information was missing and that the story was plausible, but he would like to see more. One of Bloomberg's only named sources in the story, security expert Joe Fitzpatrick, expressed his own doubts and suspects it as being theoretical. On top of this, no physical boards with a chip have ever been produced, nor has any technical information been released. Now, many also agree that it could be quite trivial to find a chip like this, including Bill Cardoso of Creative Electron, who sells machines that can detect malicious chips on these server boards. So if these were implanted, then they should have been discovered by now. Ars Technica reports that many Supermicro security flaws were reported on back in 2013 and 2014, including buffer overflows, weak firmware update processes, and clear text password disclosure bugs, many of which could have been used for the same outcome and would not require such a detailed plan of attack. Unfortunately, even I have had anonymous sources for stories before, and that's a part of reporting on security-related incidents. So I agree with journalist Zach Whitaker of ZDNet. Security reporting is murky, and proof is not always provided to the reader. So, should we believe the Bloomberg article, which took over a year to write and sounds plausible, or do we believe the companies who have been caught in the past working with Prism but sounds legit in their denials? I would love to hear what you think below in the comments. Thank you so much to Joel on Patreon for sending this story my way. Remember Google+? No? Yeah, that's okay. Neither does anybody else. Well, Google Plus was a social network that Google came out with way back in 2011, but the adoption rate was really low, and the user experience was kind of confusing. Last week, the Wall Street Journal posted about a vulnerability on the website that would allow third-party developers access to a user's private data on Google Plus using the Google Plus People API, which would allow a user to grant profile data access to apps via the API. Unfortunately, though, this API option had a bug which allowed third parties to see user profile fields that were marked as private. Now, according to the WSJ, Google knew about this problem since March of this year, and the problem persisted since 2015. But the company did not disclose it due to fear of regulatory backlash, given the timing also coincided with Facebook's Cambridge Analytica scandal. Now, they patched the bug and they moved on, and Google had an audit of their security APIs as part of their Project Strobe effort, which surfaced the issue way back in March, and of which CEO Sundar Pichai was aware of. On a related note, Pichai will reportedly be testifying before Congress in November to address the company's business practices and to answer U.S. Senators' request for information on the Google Plus vulnerability. Now, in total, about 438 developers had access to the private data for 500,000 users on Google Plus, including names, email addresses, gender, profile picture, job status, location, and birth date. And Google believes that no developer ever actually accessed or used the data. Now, due to the low usage and the significant challenges to maintain a social network, including security, Google decided to sunset the consumer version of Google Plus over the coming 10-month period with a final deadline of August 2019. The enterprise version will still be available. Now, Google has also updated how permissions work in the app by implementing a fine-grained control over what data users share with apps. The new Google account permissions will force third-party applications to show each permission in its own dialog box, instead of all lumped into one page like we'd normally seen, and will also create the ability to deny or allow each permission on a case-by-case basis. Google is also working on limiting the access apps have to Gmail, SMS, contacts, and phone permissions. Now, Google does state that they will be working on many other controls and updated policies in the coming months across several APIs, and these updates should be pushed to users of the Google suite of products, including Android. Hey everyone, real quick, I wanted to toss this into the show. You should definitely check out my friend Tom Merritt over on Daily Tech News Show. He does an excellent job covering all of the tech news that you would ever want to know, Monday through Friday, along with our friends Sarah Lane, Roger Chang, and a ton of awesome guests. I join in on Fridays now and then to give them a bunch of security coverage. You should definitely check out the show. It's over on Patreon as well, so I'll put the link below because they have a ton of exclusive extras for their Patreon too. I would love to see some of our fans join their community because they're an awesome group of people. That's Daily Tech News Show, and I hope you'll check it out. Patrons all the world over, make sure to share your favorite stories in the community tab or on Discord, and every Friday I will pick 3 or more top stories for a voting poll that patrons can vote on to be included in next week's show. Patrons also get access to a downloadable audio version of the show, first looks at show topics, polls, discussions just for patrons, behind the scene photos, and now a Discord server just for patrons at $2 a month and up. Join now to get access to all of these and to help support the show. Our next milestone goal gets you access to a live video Q&A just for patrons at all levels and gets us closer to doing a second episode each and every week. And also a big thanks to our Hush Puppy Perk level patrons for sending in their fur baby photos. I love them, so keep them coming. Hit that subscribe button or share this episode on your favorite social media page. And with that, I am Shannon Morse, and I will see you on the internet.